So now that this record has been approved, if it's completely gone through the approval process, from there the appropriate task will be created and assigned to the appropriate individuals. And so again, where we commonly will see these request templates used will be for new hire scenarios where we've got multiple people involved in a process, multiple groups, and so we can define our tasks that are associated with that type of request. So again, just wanted to give you an overview of that. Now, I'm going to switch gears here just for a second, and so I'm still logged in as a staff member, but at this point, I want to create a new incident. So I can do this a couple of ways. Here we have the Create New, where I can create any of the new types of records that I have access to. So we're going to create a new incident. At this point, let's say that we get a call from a customer, and we can type the individual's name, or we can select them from a list. So Mr. Draper here is who's having an issue. And specifically, let's say that the customer is getting an error message saying that he can't access his mail server or the mail server. So with that, we're going to select the appropriate category, which we're going to use Exchange here. Can't access mail server. Okay, and in terms of impact, well, how is this impacting our customer? Hopefully we've got some good definitions around impact, whether it be low, medium, or high. We're going to say that it's a medium impact, and with this, we're going to go ahead and save this. And so this new incident is now created. But before I spend too much time, one of the things that I might want to do is to see, well, are there any problems that are already existing and have been identified through problem management? So one of the things that we'd have the ability of doing is simply going to the link section here, and we can float over the link problem area. From here, if I wanted to take a look at problems, I can click on the new link option, and this gives me a view of problems that have already been registered. So at this point, we do have a couple of problems that are already registered related to email, or the option would be to create a brand new problem. And so either way, we can create and link or just simply link an existing. And so we're gonna do that by selecting an existing problem. Now, by linking this problem, at that point, we now have the ability to utilize the workaround so that we can resolve this incident and hopefully get the customer back to an operational state much more quickly. In addition to that, a couple of other things to point out is that we might want to name the specific asset that this customer is having an issue with. So from here, we can link the CI record, and at this point, we have the option of seeing records that are in our configuration management database, such as the email service, or we also have the option of seeing different assets through Asset Core. So with that, we're going to just do a quick search, and sure enough, here's a mail server that maybe we're having that issue with, and so we're going to link that to our incident. Once that CI is linked, we have a number of things that we can do. One of which is to select our CI actions. And so, as I'd mentioned before, the integration with Asset Core, well, this is an example of that, where if I wanted to see the most current or recent inventory information regarding this asset, I can see all the attributes as it relates to this device. And understand that I'm not storing this in my CMDB. My CMDB is being used to identify the relationships between the assets and the services that they support and the customers they support. So again, I have a great deal of detail, but I'm not cluttering my configuration management database with that. I just simply have a reference to that. And so here, we can see hardware, we can see the software. Now, other actions that we might see would be inventory, a reboot, a ping. These are things that just frankly I've not gotten around to configuring quite yet with my Asset Core implementation, but those are features and things that you'd have the ability of performing. Other things that we might want to do in an attempt to resolve this incident or have a better understanding of what the customer is experiencing is by viewing the Explorer, the CI Explorer. So if we select the CI Explorer, this will bring up a graphical representation of the assets and everything that's been defined in this configuration management database. So as we look here at, for example, our Houston mail server cluster, well, at this point we can see a great deal of detail. So here we have our application that's in Houston. There's the mail cluster. We can see the individual servers. There's the server that we have an issue with. You can see the red X. That's indicating that we already have an open record, whether that be an incident, a problem, or a change record, but we have an open record as it relates to this device. So that's what those red X's indicate. And if I need to see more detailed information about that device, I can do that by simply clicking on the link, and that takes me to the CMDB record. Now, from here, as I'm looking at the item in the configuration management database, at that point, again, I can perform certain actions as it relates to the to Asset Core. So again, I can launch the the viewer. I can remote control all those types of things. In addition to that, from within the CMDB, I can launch my Footprints Asset Core console here. So this gives me, again, this is where you would manage the endpoints using Footprints Asset Core. And so as you're seeing this launch, this gives me quite a bit of functionality from the perspective of patch management, software distribution, remote control, power management, and compliance management. Okay, and so again, and this may not be accessible to everyone. This is entirely up to you in terms of the permissions that you want to grant individuals or not. All right, so as we go back to our incident here, and we had linked this incident to a problem. Let's just take a quick look at this problem. And so in problem management, what I always tell customers is this is really where you begin to take that turn from being entirely reactive to proactive. And so one of the things that we want to do ideally is to review our incidents on a fairly regular basis and identify, are these incidents, especially those high impact, those major incidents, are they correlated to a single problem? Is there one problem that's causing these incidents to arise with our customers? And if so, we should be identifying there's a workaround for those problems, but more importantly, we should also be identifying what changes need to be implemented in order to correct that problem. And so from our problem record, we're absolutely able to link change request or create a new change request. But before I do that, what I would like to point out is that all of the processes that I'm referring to and talking to, they're all published within Remedyforce. So here is an overview of the problem management process. And if I want to learn more about the request review and exactly what's involved there, I simply click on that option, and here I have some very detailed procedures as a problem coordinator that I should be taking in the problem management process. So I need to examine the first review or examine the first unreviewed request in our overview, our request overview. And from there I can determine root cause if it's already been established and so forth. And even here, if I'm unsure of what exactly I might need to do, if I get to the point of needing to register a new problem, how do I do that? Here's the detailed work instructions that are published right here within the application. So again, we've really gone to a great detail in terms of identifying a process, but also providing an application that supports those idle processes and it's already pre-configured. Now, certainly if you need to make adjustments to the product as an administrator, make adjustments to the forms and capabilities, you'd absolutely be able to do that. So don't feel like you have to follow the processes, or you're limited to the ability to configure the application, because you absolutely can make those types of modifications. In addition to the problem, so now that we've identified the root cause, we maybe have a better understanding of what changes need to occur. From there, I can link this to an existing change or create a new change, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And so by creating that linkage, we can see our change record, and if I want to access the change record, I simply click the hyperlink. That takes me to my change record, and from here I can see any of the details. Now, certainly I need to do things like identify, for example, what's the change type. So let's put this record in edit mode, and so change type, this is going to be a standard change. In terms of the impact, it's medium. There's our urgency that we've defined. What's the start date? When would we want to implement this change? So we can select dates here. So hopefully we'll be able to do that on the 16th, and we should have that wrapped up by the 17th. Once we actually start the work, we can identify our actual start and end dates. And so, again, so it wants to know who the user is that is initiated this, and so that's myself. We'll go ahead and save that. So now that that change has been identified, here again, we might want to submit this for approval. So, but even before that, we might want to have it go through an assessment process where we can assign individuals to assess the change. From there, they're able to define things like the technology, the financial, the business risk associated with the change, all those types of things. And in addition to that, aside from the assessments, we're also able to submit it for approval, as I had mentioned before. So I can submit this change for approval, okay, and from there we'll get the appropriate approval records identified and sent to individuals, okay? And so we can see here, I actually, because I'm not the approver, it's this RightStar administrator person who needs to approve this change. Well, at that point, I can't make that approval. That's it is definitely rights and role restricted within the application. So ultimately, once this record has been approved, we can identify the appropriate tasks that need to be completed, and in addition to that, we can link it to the appropriate release. So as a release coordinator, I've got 10, 15 changes that need to happen in order to implement this release. And so, or I may just have a number of changes that need to happen, and I want to bundle those as a release. So at that point, I can link it to the release. One other thing to point out here, as we're looking at this change record, it's very helpful to see this in a calendar view. So there's certainly the change calendar that is helpful, so you understand what changes are happening, when they're happening, and if there's any overlap and if there might be conflict there. So that is certainly a nice feature within the application.